two more questions I want to ask you on. One, there's been a welter of spending announcements, and government, when all else fails, tends to reach for its chequebook and throw some money at the problem. How are you making sure that money is used strategically and judging the effects of that money spent?
So, is it worth me just talking through exactly where I am financially from the command, or I can talk about how I'm managing it?
No, I just on broad. I want to hear how you're actually managing.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was a budget identified for Border Security Command when I came in, and as I said at the beginning, that budget was then extended to cover 24-25, and then we also had the additional 100 million from the reserve in this year. I have put together, and all of that funding is coming in for border security, and to Border Security Command or for border security. The vast majority of that funding I am then distributing out to other parts of the system, because that's where the actual delivery is taking place. So I have a team working for me within Border Security Command who are managing all the finance and the financial accountability processes, and obviously my processes then work up into the Permanent Secretary's accounting officer responsibilities in the Home Office. But the original, the core budget 175, that is 101 of that is going to NCA for capability and operations.
I don't need to know where the money's going.
Right, okay.
I want to understand how you actually determine where best to use the money and make sure you're getting value for money.
So that links precisely into my single integrated plan. The plan is identifying all of those activities that we believe are the activities that will get us to where we need to get to. The funding and the funding allocation, be it in the core 175 or the additional 100, is allocated to allow us to deliver against the actions that are in those plans. I then have the team that is working up and managing the finance from my perspective. As I say, most of that money goes out. A significant part of that goes with the NCA, and we've now developed a joint team working to manage that money. First point, so then when you manage the money, you then have to manage the outputs to ensure that you are getting what you are paying for in the money, be that technology, be that people, whatever it may be. And that stage of the process is what works within what I've just described. Then
your role. That's your role.
My role,
yeah.
And my team is managing, and I am responsible for that budget, and then ultimately up to the Permanent Secretary, who is responsible as the accounting officer for that budget. So that is very clear, and that is me ensuring that the money, either within the Home Office or other departments or CPS or the NCA, is accounted for, and I can see the output. The real challenge, and this is where we've done and are doing a lot of work, is taking that to the next stage, which is identifying the outcome and making sure that the money that I am allocating and what that is buying is then having an outcome at the other end. And we've been doing a considerable amount of work with the Home Office analysis and insight, the sort of statistical side within the Home Office, to really work up the methodology about how we are able to quantify in outcome terms the money that we are spending.
I see from last night's letter that you say there's some 5,000 people employed in border security system.
The overall system, that's the overall system.
Of which 1,000 are directly funded by your command. He who pays the piper, 80% of the people in the system aren't directly funded via the command. How do you actually make sure you're getting that 80% to do what you want them to do?
Well, I mean, the reality is, I don't think it's a practical way of trying to operate that only the people that I'm paying for are delivering what we need to deliver. The money that I have been given is really about allocating that to the most significant elements that will deliver against my plan. The remainder the management of that is working through my governance arrangements and my governance arrangements as the Border Security Commander to make sure that the various parts of the system are delivering what I need them to deliver against the sort of the taskings that I'm putting out there. So I don't think we will ever would be in a position that it was purely based around directly funding. The funding that I do have needs to be targeted at those things that are the most significant, and I'm the most confident will deliver the not only the outputs but the outcome. And then the rest of the system I have to manage through my governance arrangements.
Finally, I want to return to a question I've asked Mr Jones about in private session in the past, this smashing the gangs. We've been trying to smash the drug gangs for decades and decades and failed. And at a previous session, the Director General of the NCA said, the difference is the infancy. The infancy of the gangs makes it easier. And as I've put to Mr Jones in the past, he has said in the Times, the infancy of the gangs makes it more difficult. Can you explain that conundrum in public session and convince me this time?
So it's very simple. So I've compared the comparisons to the drugs market. There's two levels to that. First thing is the drugs market has been established for many, many years. You know, it's really the 70s that drugs exploded, and the enforcement effort began with the Misuse of Drugs Act in 1971. That involves hundreds of thousands of people internationally in many, many different countries and produces billions. The small boats problem is a subset of people smuggling. So we are not saying we will stop people smuggling, just like you are saying we haven't stopped drug smuggling and drug abuse. We are saying that the most damaging and harmful and most egregious breach of border security at the moment is small boats. That part of organised immigration crime is new. It's 5 years old. That's relatively new in terms of a crime type. Has only really become a problem since 2020, and involves a much smaller amount of people with bespoke equipment. So that, as a target for law enforcement, is very, very different from other targets. The other comment around the comparison to the drug trade, so on one level the organised crime groups are different, but there is something that is very difficult about the small boats model, which is that most of the equipment is dual use and legal. And it's only really now, in the last 2 years, that we've been trying to criminalise that business model with new legislation. If I've got a drug consignment on the road, I can find it, I can do surveillance on it, and anybody in possession of it or connected to it is arrestable. End of story. Small boats equipment is not like that. So when I say it's more difficult to see small boats equipment, that's what I mean. Because we need to link that to the criminality behind it. The new measures that come through, which criminalise that business model, will make it easier for us to do it. So they're the differences. And what has been said around the immaturity of this model, this is the time to really leverage the effort across all of the areas that we've talked about to really push this back. Because the longer it goes on, we see what happens, because organised crime copies what works. For many, many years, organised crime choose to smuggle people in lorries through canalised traffic. Now, that is where we should contest this. That is the place to do it, with protective security, protection for migrants, and that's the place that it's hardest for organised crime to work. So we need to push it back in that direction and fight it there, not in the English Channel, with all the associated risk to people and the opportunities for organised crime. So that's the comparison with drugs.